What a couple of weeks. What a couple of weeks supporting Newcastle United. 10 points from 12. European football looking like it's in our hands and things are on the up. But in this video, I want to talk about maybe a bit of criticism that came a little bit too soon, a couple of things Newcastle fans can learn, and also some more tactical adapting from Mr. Eddie Howe. Let's look a little bit closer at that Tottenham game and discuss things. So if you're curious, Newcastle fans, and I know you are, do us a little favour and make sure you stick around for a lovely little dollop of Black and White banter. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, you lovely Newcastle fans. And yes, you might have guessed it, or maybe you don't know what I'm stood behind. Just behind me here is my entrance into St James's Park for what has been like the last 12, 13, 14 years before I moved from level 7. And I never, not that you care about this before I get into this video, I never go in 49 and 48. It's wrong. If I ever do, we are going to lose the football match. It's always 50 and 51. Always. So if we ever lose at St James's Park, just remember it's that prick on YouTube probably went through the wrong turnstile. But what a glorious sight. For some reason, this entrance means a lot to me. Like, you focus on the smallest of little things. I walk in there so many times and it's the happiest moment. Normally, sometimes, the happiest moment, and it's just, I just had to come outside here and do a video. So as well, but of course things are well, because we have taken 10 points from 12 with a team that pretty much has a second 11, a competitive second first team 11 that would probably do okay. That is the extent of this bizarre season that we find ourselves in, but we have put ourselves in a spot where we are looking one of the most informed teams in the league, and we absolutely demolished European chase and Tottenham Hotspur. We demolished them, and what a day. What a day. West Ham was amazing, just inside this beautiful palace. Tottenham was amazing, inside this beautiful palace. And now we can hopefully add some more European trips to next season. But I'm not counting my chickens just yet. But what did we learn from Saturday? Now, before I get into the tactical side on this video, I just want to say I've watched a lot of podcasts in the last 3 or 4 days, as I do. I create content, I do delve when I'm working in the background into other people's content, and generally the mood on social media as well, I'm not just raining on people making videos, the mood itself has gone a little bit quiet around this Eddie Howe out narrative, and I'm not saying that's the large majority by any means, but what should we take away from what we have seen? Well, how many times, with perspective, how many times have Newcastle in this awful injury situation lost a football match in 2024? Not many times. We are looking at a Newcastle team that has scored more goals this season than Kevin Keegan's entertainers. The clue is in the title. That is one of the most famous eras supporting Newcastle, because not only did we challenge for the title, but we also played some of the most exciting attacking football. The season's not even over and we've scored more goals than that. But still, people, when the going gets a little bit tough, and it's got so tough this season, the man in our dugout is the man that's been questioned, and it frustrates the hell out of me. It really frustrates me, because now, when things are rosy in the garden again, literally sun shining and results coming back our way, everybody is, and I know that's football, I get that, but what I would ask any Newcastle fan to do from the last couple of months, with perspective, that's a huge word here, FA Cup quarter-finals, League Cup quarter-finals, Champions League. We have just watched 2 teams get through to the semis that were in our group. We should have got out of that group if it wasn't for that absolutely ridiculous handball in France. And we got out of a group that is now proving why it was one of the hardest, because one of them teams is going to be in the Champions League final. We've had some great days this season, and imagine, everybody's saying it now, imagine how good we could be if we had a full squad. Imagine. Why were people not saying that 2 months ago? That's what frustrates me. Players, I'm seeing Joe Willock getting dragged through the mud on social media at the moment because he's got this Achilles injury. Should we get rid? He's never really been good for us since the Steve Bruce era. Absolute bollocks. Yes, Joe Willock's injury is not ideal. Of course it isn't. But we should not be turning our back on a player who, for the large part of his career at Newcastle, has been pretty good. I just think we all need a bit of patience. So, on that note, what did Eddie Howe do on Saturday that really intrigued me and every single person inside here as we witnessed that beautiful thing? Well, he tweaked his tactics once again to the point where I did not quite understand what was happening at the start. Tottenham did not understand what was happening at the start. He was so smart. Newcastle fans, you might not have realised this. When the team sheet came through from the official club website, and we all looked for it, who's playing, for some reason on Saturday we were all confused when I was travelling in, because it was all over the place. It wasn't in order, so Isak was playing in defence and we didn't know who was playing where. That was deliberately done by Eddie Howe because he did not want Tottenham or anyone connected to the opposition to know exactly what formation we were playing. That's how much was thought into this, which I thought was just a random, crazy little thing. But how did we set up? So from the first whistle, we went 3 at the back. And yes, I've done a video about the 3 at the back that we tried against Nottingham Forest away more recently that pushed Bruno up further, with Trippier as an inverted midfielder and Dan Burn moving in and Livramento on the left-hand side as that wing-back. So I thought with the injuries we have, that couldn't be done again. How wrong was I? So we had, as we kicked off, we had Burn, Share and Kraft as the 3 centre-backs, and it looked like we were going 3 at the back. Jacob Murphy, you're thinking he's got to be the wing back, but on the left hand side, no one had a. Sorry, I'm just making sure the microphone is visible enough for this to be decent sound. It's a little bit windy. No one had a Scooby-Doo who was playing that left wing back, and it almost looked like Dan Burn must be playing there. It must be 4 at the back. No. Elliot Anderson. Does anyone remember that interview from Eddie Howe on BT? Of course you do. With Luke Humphries, who could forget it? He talked about how obsessed he is as a manager. He talked about everything. But what was the main thing that he said about him working with players and what he loves to do?
I loved helping people. I loved developing footballers and trying to help change their lives. But I wasn't doing it necessarily for me or for the money.
He loves developing players. He loves developing players, and we've seen it with Joe Linton. We've seen it with Jacob Murphy. You could argue we've seen it with Miguel Almiron. You could argue we've seen it with Dan Burn. Players who were probably played out of the skins. Longstaff last season, who maybe aren't the greatest, but he's got that little bit extra out of them. Where Elliot Anderson, for me, so far, is the freak in all of this, because what we saw Elliot Anderson do on Saturday, and not only since he has come back into this team, are his stats incredible. He's helped transform us. I'm not one to go overly crazy on an opinion. Elliot Anderson has offered us something in that midfield that has helped us pick up those 10 points from 12. And his stats compared to all midfielders in Europe are absolutely incredible. I'll share some of them on the screen. This is against the top 5 leagues in Europe, and look how many green bars there is on that graphic. But what we saw Elliot Anderson do on Saturday was again play as not an inverted midfielder, because he is an midfielder. He was almost a makeshift left back. And that's not something I believe that Elliot Anderson has ever done in his career before. And I don't know enough about his youth life from being a little kid, because he is only young. But he dropped in and he always adapted back to a back 5. So Tottenham really struggled to break us down when they came forward, because we had so many men behind the ball in them positions. And then what he then went on from there and do, he then joined the midfield and he broke up play. And again, I'll share a graphic when he comes back into midfield, winning the football, and he slipped Isak. And Isak should have scored. I mean, we should have had 7 or 8. And at times, he joined the attack to a point where we had 4. Whether it was Bruno, whether it was Barnes, whether it was Gordon, whether it was Isak, whether it was Longstaff, we were bombarding their box. And I tell you what, Eddie Howe must have worked on that, because this Newcastle team does not normally get that many bodies in the box as fast as we did, and support the attack in almost a 4 up front at times. And Tottenham could not cope. They set up for Newcastle to play with a very traditional under Eddie Howe 4-3-3, and how we set up on Saturday in both attack and defence, and the fact we could get Elliot Anderson to basically adapt as a wing back, but also offer so much in the final third, is nothing short of an incredible, drastic change to tactics. And I couldn't get my head around it for the first 15 minutes, but Eddie Howe, in my opinion, on Saturday has done his homework on Tottenham, and it came up absolute trumps. And the one man whose praises I am singing, and I could be singing about Dan Burn, I could be singing, he's done well since he's gone to centre back. I could be singing about Bruno, we always sing about him. I could be singing about Gordon and Isak, look at the best striker in the Prem. Elliot Anderson is doing everything. Eddie Howe was asked this week about comparisons to Joe Linton, and I totally agree with what he said. Not the same player. Joe Linton's an athlete. Joe Linton's naturally got something about him. Elliot Anderson's got that drive and that passion as a Geordie boy, and that's getting him through a little bit in terms of breaking up playing midfield. But what Elliot Anderson offers that Joe Linton doesn't necessarily have is that attacking threat in the box with quick feet to make things happen, to score goals that we saw at Bristol Rovers. And I know you're going to think different leagues, Bristol Rovers, but he was literally nicknamed, he helped them get promoted, the Geordie Maradona, and we've adopted that chant, as cringe as some might think it is. That's what he offers, and the fact he is now giving us that break-up midfield and also a makeshift left-back. I just thought Saturday, from a tactical point of view, which is something I like to rein in on, was absolutely incredible to see how much we changed our system. And it confused Tottenham. We didn't know what it was going into St James's Park, and it was an immaculate performance. But Eddie Howe is proving to me that yes, because someone watching this video is going to be like, oh, Black and White Banter's always been pro Eddie Howe. Now he's just saying up yours to anyone who ever doubted him. That's not what I'm saying on this video. Eddie Howe has made mistakes this season. Eddie Howe has played an intense pressing style, too many matches with a limited squad. He should have adapted his tactics earlier in the season, in my opinion, and the injuries started to roll in, the energy started to drop off. Who could forget that game at Bournemouth where we were just running on empty? He has made mistakes. He has maybe played players in positions for too long. But all of the things that I see as being criticised in this Newcastle team this season, there is a reason and something that will get better there. Sean Longstaff, for example, getting absolutely dragged through the mud. And I might sound really whiny on this video because I see this team as my own. And I will criticise a player when they don't put in a good shift. Of course I will. Longstaff has been pretty bad for a long time. But Longstaff has also done numerous interviews where he has explained that last season he did his ankle. And he shouldn't have continued playing, but he did. This season, he is taking injections for that ankle. And I just feel like Longstaff is never going to be a world-class player. But what we forget very easily as football fans is that last season, Longstaff was so important that when he came out of the team in getting Champions League football, performances dropped off. I'm seeing Joe Willock now getting battered. I'm seeing Longstaff regularly getting battered. And I get it. We talk about players off individual performances. That's fine. I've said many things. There's lots of players in this team I would prefer to be sold in the summer. I understand. But all I'm saying is, based off what I have seen this season, based off what I'm hopefully going to continue to see, I am absolutely proud as punch of these players. And this manager, we are going to go through bad patches with a manager. It is not going to be winning football matches every week. And I understand expectations because of last season went like this on a graph. They did. And I genuinely believe, I don't think necessarily Champions League again, but if we had Tonali switching up with Bruno in midfield, if we had a fully firing Joe Linton, if we had Joe Willock terrorising that left-hand side, rotating with Anthony Gordon, if we had three options at left-back in Matt Targett and Hall, obviously Eddie Howe feeling like he was ready, because for whatever reason, again, I'm going to keep some faith in our manager. He didn't feel like Hall was from the start. If we had all of our centre-backs fully fit bottom, I could go on and on. Nick Pope, look how much Dubravka's dropped us back 10 yards. I don't care what anyone says. We are weaker as a defensive unit because Dubravka hates coming off his line, and the stats say that. Keep the faith, Newcastle fans, because that 10 points from 12, one Paul Dummett clothesline away from 4 wins out of 4, in our circumstances, in any circumstances in the Premier League, is absolutely class. And what I saw on Saturday was a manager drastically changing things tactically to suit the opposition. And my God, did we absolutely terrorise Tottenham Hotspur. And if you haven't watched Dealing with Eddie Howe's Mags, the latest episode, I would recommend you do. Because if you weren't sure what the Tottenham fans felt about that result, you might quite enjoy it. Because we have got a team that are fighting for that shirt, not just here for the money. They are buying into everything we are doing, and we are every step of the way with them. The grass is not always green in Newcastle fans. Let's stick with this group of players, let's stick with this manager, and let's see and limp over that line, because my God, with a couple of players to come back between now and the end of the season, God knows where we could finish, and isn't it exciting? I'm loving being a Newcastle fan. I cannot wait to get back in here in my turnstile. Thank you very much for watching. I just want to give a final shout out to all the love Black and White Banter's had. My last word blog on social media, on Facebook, got so many nice comments with comparisons to journalists and stuff that I was almost choked up. Lots of love for the videos. Thank you very much. Whack that like and subscribe if you've stuck around this long, and I'll see you on the next one. However, Eddie Howe's absolutely class unbeaten Mags. Come here.